Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally going to give this cracked rim the attention it deserves. So if you're a subscriber, you probably saw that video come out like a year ago. I deleted it shortly after that just because that video ended up just being like a total disaster. But every time I do release a video, I pretty much get two main questions every single time. One is, when are you going to do a transmission fluid video? And the answer is, mine was done like 10,000 miles ago, so it might be a while. But eventually, yes, I will do a transmission fluid. The other one is, what are your wheels and what are their specs? So technically, I did make a video on that a little while ago, but it was more under the header of a tire machine video, like how to install 25 series tires, and so maybe it got missed. But either way, we're going to be talking about wheels in this video. Many of you guys know the history I had with the E63. The stock wheels that I got in this car were bent and cracked, and so I had to get new wheels. I went to an aftermarket place and it didn't go very well. So anyway, we're going to be talking about specs and what to get on your E63. So check this out. Alright guys, so E63 Wheel. So before I tell you about the ones that are in my car, let's talk about the other options, including the factory options. So right here I have a fine example of the factory rim from the E63. Careful, I gotta make sure I don't scratch it with my watch. These are 19 by 9s in the front, 19 by 9.5s in the rear, and they are cast, which means that they are prone to breaking and cracking, and they're heavy. So most people with E63 have probably or will experience a bent rim in their future, just because the cars are a little bit heavy and these things just, they suck. You know, you can't really get around it. Fortunately, there is a decent option if you like stock rims, and that would be the split 5 spokes. Now they're rare, and but they are factory forged, and they're very strong, they're lighter, and they're less prone to banging and cracking. So I would prefer those. I look for those for a long time. They're hard to find. But that still doesn't get away from their second defect, and that is that the rears tend to sit quite a bit inboard. And so you can fix that with spacers. I did that on my silver car, installed 10mm spacers in the rear. Now spacers, if installed wrong, can be very dangerous, so you got to be very, very careful. They still can be looked down upon, so it's best just to get wheels with the proper spacing. Luckily, there is a factory option that will work, and that would be... Factory option that you can look at is the factory CLS 63 rims. Now they come in the same size in the front, but in the rear they are a 10-inch wide rim, and they have an ET47 instead of ET52. So what that means is they stick out about 15mm further to the edge. And so I installed those with 295 factory tires in the rear, and it looked amazing. But in regards to the CLS 63 rims, there are two drawbacks to them. One is they're extremely rare. They're like a unicorn rim. So if you find one, buy it. They're probably the best rims factory rims you can buy for these. And the second I actually consider a bonus, and that is that they're actually sometimes considered the pre-facelift version, because on the E63, the split spokes changed pre-facelift to facelift version. On the CLS 63, they actually stayed the same. You could still order that style all the way up until like 2016 or whatever. So I actually really, really like it. That's my favorite style rim, and I did have these on there a while, and I thought they looked amazing. So if you can find them, check them out. Now, if those pre-facelift CLS 63 rims don't do it for you, there is one more. It is the last year version of the CLS 63 rims, which happens to be the same style as the newer w213 E63 rims, which have the wrong offset for here. So if you like that style in the 213s and you want to put it on your car, it's cool because they're forged, it's in the CLS 63 offset, it's just super rare. But I did see one that popped up on Facebook Marketplace, hence why I'm putting this edit in here. So I'll put the part numbers for those, and maybe you guys can put them on an eBay watch or something like that. And if they show up, you know, buy them because they're pretty cool. Okay, so moving on from the stock rims, and since there's no homemade option, that leads us obviously to aftermarket. So with aftermarket, we'll talk about three things. One is the brands, two is the materials, and then lastly the specifications on here right now for the E63. So with brands, you know, there's a lot of good brands out there. I'm not gonna like recommend or not recommend any particular one, other than I would not recommend Variant. And two, I will just tell you I've had good experiences with both BC Forged and Signature Forged right here. So there is kind of a misconception. You don't have to spend like $10,000 to get a good quality rim. Like for example, these BC Forged, fully forged, built to spec, shipped to my door for like $3 grand. And that's like a hell of a deal. And these ended up being like super high quality. Like when I put them on my balancer, they're completely straight. They took 0 ounces to balance. The only weight I needed is once I put a TPMS sensor on there, it required 1 ounce on the other side of that. So I'm very, very happy with those. And so, you know, that's just kind of an option out there. Obviously, Signature Forge is what is on here, and we will talk about more in a second. All right, and second, we're going to talk about material. So basically, there's 3 different kinds. There's cast. If you buy that, they're cheap, and you're basically wasting your money. Might as well keep the stock rims if you're going to go cast. So if you're looking to upgrade, a good value is the Rotary Forge. Basically, they take a cast like kind of shell, and then they run it between rollers. I'm oversimplifying this. And they say that that pressure from the rollers causes the metal to be forged. So they are a little stronger, they're a little lighter, they're kind of good in between. But honestly, if you're going to spend the money, you might as well just go straight to the forge. The quality is going to be better. These are like cut from a block. They're high quality, they're going to be symmetrical, and they're just going to be balanced right, and everything's going to be better. They are significantly lighter, and they're significantly stronger than all the other options. So try to find a good one of these. Like I said, BC Forge is a great value. There's a bunch of other ones out there, or you can keep monitoring Marketplace, and eventually you'll find somebody because the resale on rims is not that good. So now topic number 3, we're going to be talking about the E63 specifications and what to pick and what to look for here and what specs are these. So the E63 is an all-wheel drive car. Thus, you need to make sure that the front and rear ratios are the same rolling diameter ratio as stock. Stock is 26 inches tall in the front, 25.8 in the rear. That actually comes out to about 1% difference. So that is kind of the tolerance that's built in factory. Maybe you can go more, maybe you can go less, but I would really want to test that. So the closer you can get to 100% front and rear stock, that is good. Number 2, you probably want to stay in the same diameter, and there's a bunch of reasons to do that. A, you're going to get rub here when you turn if it's any taller diameter. So I went from 19s to 20s, and these are the exact same diameter. This is a 26-inch tire right here up front, just like it was stock. So as far as the car is concerned, it does not know that there are different size tires. Everything is functioning just like it was before, except for these are 8 pounds lighter per wheel. Personally, I wouldn't recommend going to 21s. I think the 20s seem to be very fitting on the car. They have a classy, elegant look to them, and kind of good performance orientated. So front offsets, the stock is a 9-inch wide rim with an ET37 tire on there. This one is a 9-inch wide rim with an ET30 tire on there. So it's only 7 millimeters further out. I went with a 255, which is the stock width tire on there. This is a 255 30/20 Michelin on there. And so like I said, very happy with this. There's no rubbing. It fits perfectly. It's the exact perfect flushness that I prefer, and there's no risk of it grabbing a lip or rubbing or anything like that. All right, and so now we move on to the rear wheels, and that's where it gets a little more complex because, like I said, Mercedes uses a different offset than a lot of things use. So if you look at BMWs and Audis and GMs or whatever, everybody uses like a 30-30 offset or maybe 35 offset. So these are ET52 factory offsets. So if you were to put an ET30 on this, that pushes the wheel out 1 inch further outboard than it was meant to go, which is way too much. You really only have between maybe 10 and 15 millimeters to play with on the top. So when I spec out a set of rims, and I didn't actually spec these out, these were actually spec'd out by Signature Forge, and they obviously were very informed at the way they spec these out. But I have custom built the ones on the 430, and I'm custom building another set right now. And when I do that, I go through and I factor in everything. I look at the stock wheel, I plug it in on 1010 offset, and I figure out how far out I want that face to be, and then I factor in exactly what tire I want to keep the diameter the same, the sidewall profile the same, and all that other stuff. So, for example, the previous wheels I had on here were not spec'd correctly, in my opinion. So they were a 20 by 10 ET40. So that pushes them out almost 17 millimeters further out, and that's a lot. They were 10 inches wide, which really meant you needed like a 295, maybe a 305. But the problem with those are they were spec'd so far out, you couldn't fit those tires. It would have rubbed. So the only tire you could have got was the 285/25. And the problem with the 285/25, besides being it's skinny, is it's short. It's 25.5 inches tall instead of the needed 26 inches tall, which I have on here. So the tires were way too short, they were way too stretched, they looked way too thin, and it was just kind of dumb looking. So that's kind of like amateur hour, whoever spec'd those at that company. They shouldn't have been done like that. So these ones, in my opinion, are spec'd perfectly. So these are a 20 by 10 and a half ET52. So that pushes them out about 13 millimeters more than stock, which is pretty conservative, which allows you to run the 305/25 tire. Now the benefit to the 305 over the 285/25 is it is 26 inches tall, which is that golden number I needed. Two, it's 2 inches wide. I'm sorry, it's 1.5 inches wider if you look at the actual Michelin specs. And it just looks perfect. Like it's actually the perfect tire. So now if you come in here and check out kind of the fender clearance, looks really, really good. So it tucks up in there nicely. I've actually collapsed the suspension before just to kind of like make sure it didn't rub, and it fits in there perfect. So they are signature forged SV104s, which is a fully forged design. They're 20 pounds up front, 20.4 pounds rear, so a super lightweight rim compared to the stock rims, which are 28 pounds each. That's a significant change in like the, you know, the rolling mass or whatever you call it on these. So another cool thing is they're kind of like a really dark gunmetal when you look at them head on, but when you look at them from the side, they're like this kind of brushed clear metal look. Okay, so just to recap, we got signature forged SV104s in kind of a brushed gunmetal, brushed clear combo, and they are 20 by 9 ET30s in the front, and in the rear we're rocking 20 by 10.5 ET52s. 255/30s on the front, 305/25 Michelins in the rear. No rubbing, completely stock ratios and stock diameters. The car does not know that it has different size tires.